So welcome to Lawrence and Breena. Thank you so much for being here today. And I am going to stop sharing and I will turn it over to Lawrence, who I believe will share screen as well.
Yes. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Perfect. I am Lawrence Lindell. We're here to celebrate my book. We all got something. I will draw quarterly now, and I'm gonna do like a kind of behind the scenes look at what it takes to make a graphic novel, I guess. Um, yeah. So workspace, most of the comic and book was drawn in San Francisco, in our apartment office. And yeah, I had two designated spaces. One was in the back, but then I had to move to the dining room because our scanner is really loud and it would keep our toddler up. So yeah, everything was drawn traditionally at first, and then I would go in and letter digitally and color, but it's not really color, but do the grays on the iPad. And yeah, so when I first started, I wasn't sure if I could. Like the last book I did completely on the iPad, so I wasn't sure if I could even do this traditionally anymore. And then once I got done with drawing the first page, it kind of all just clicked and it came back to me. Yeah. And yeah, a lot of these pages actually didn't make it into the book, but they're still fun to draw. Yeah, and then as the iPad setup is nothing special, but it gets the job done. It's all I hate when people say hand drawn and only mean like traditional because I'm technically still hand drawing when I draw on iPad. Like my hand's still doing work and it gets hurt the same. But yeah, so I inked or I lettered on the iPad and then I would add in the grays on the iPad. And then that's our scanner. The one I had to move to the living room because it was keeping the baby up. And that's the complete book when it was done. It's kind of interesting to see every page that went into making the graphic novel with Bluey in the background. Development, which is my favorite part of making comics. I'm a big visual development person, so characters, backgrounds, layout, styles. Originally, I wasn't sure if I was gonna do it all digitally, or if I was going to do a hybrid, or if I was going to do graphite. And so this is me playing around with what the book could possibly look like. And yeah, more character designs, trying to figure out how I wanted to draw myself, how I wanted to draw all the characters in the book. Yeah, it's weird to see because none of this went into the book, but it's like if I didn't do it, I don't think the book would have turned out the way it did. So it's kind of like what goes into making stuff. I was playing around with the idea of if I did do it digitally, should I do it in color like I did the last one, or stick to gray, which is how I pitched it to Drawn and Quarterly. So when I did want to change it to color, it kind of was like, that's not what you pitched us, and so we kept it with gray and black and white. Yeah, there's some environment studies. The book takes place mostly in Southern California, Compton, Los Angeles, Hollywood. Yeah, so it's like we have the metro out there, and I was trying to see how I could cartoonify the metro bus stop, and and then it also takes place in England or London, Brixton, and so I was trying to see like play around with what that could look like. The image on the left has Tesco, which is like the store out there in London, and then the metro sign in the middle. And then when I was trying to sneak in color, I was like, well, maybe if I tell my editor, what if we keep the backgrounds like not color and then I do the characters in color? And it didn't end up happening, but this was the early stages of playing around with that. And these are tests just to kind of see what could happen. And more tests, these are the three I sent over to my editor and asked which style do they prefer. And I think they chose the middle one and the one on the right. And the book is closer to the one on the right, I think. And this is me figuring out if I could do all the skin tones in graphite or if I should just keep it digital. Um, and we ended up going with digital. But, yeah, a lot of tests, a lot of playing around just to see how the book would work. It's like the fun stuff. Drawing's fun, but this part is like it's all creative. So yeah, it's the fun stuff that goes into the book. And this is how I get to a complete page. So I don't do thumbnails. I do rough drafts on my iPad. So like the full page. And that's essentially what I turn in to my editor. Um, I do the entire book like this that's on the left, and then I take that and go into a penciling stage. And then from penciling, I go to inks. And then from ink, I scan it in and then I put it into the computer. And then I do digital, colors or grayscale. And then also, once I get my copy edits, I do lettering on the iPad. Research. I do a lot of, if I do memoir and autobio, I don't like to rely on my memory. So I pull a lot from pictures, videos, images from the time, art I was making at the time, music, um, documents, and reference. I don't do that a lot for like fiction stuff, even though I do, but not like this is when I do memoir, I try to be as accurate as possible, so it gets kind of intense. So I have all these folders. I'm very organized because I like to be able to just get to what I need to get to when I want to get to it. And here's an example of how I use reference. In the book, I talk about my first performance when we came back from England at Mrs. Fish in downtown LA. And I don't use reference to get the picture exact. That's not what I'm after. I want the essence of what the night was like. And so, yeah, that's what usually happens once I look at the image or the video and then I go in and try to do my interpretation, which sounds funny because I have reference, so there's no reason to interpret it. But I feel like if I draw the exact picture the way it exactly looks, I'm kind of cheating the experience. I don't know how to explain it. It's like the essence of what happened that night is realer than the image, if that makes any sense. It probably doesn't, but I'm gonna stick with it. Uh, the image on the left is from Mrs. Fish, their actual website, and so I use that to kind of yeah, get the essence of the scenes in the nightclub. It's a really inside, it's all beautiful, but you wouldn't know it was there if you were just walking past it. It's really interesting. That's what the building looks like on the outside. Again, not trying to get the most accurate depiction of what the actual building is. I just wanted the essence of that night. But yeah. One thing I don't have pictures of is food. Like I'm not the person that takes pictures of food, so I I usually have to look it up. And also, uh, I come from like a Christian household, so we hold hands when we eat dinner, and we don't take pictures during that part. So I have no pictures of us at dinner time. So I had to reference from the internet, which I use the clumps in the bottom and soul food and yeah. And I was trying to say like, what does this look like from the outside looking in? Because I don't know because we don't have any pictures of that. And then in this moment in the book, we're not holding hands because it was kind of a tense moment. So I chose to take the warmth out of that family dinner moment, and yeah, that's what you get from the image. Mr. Coffee, which no longer exists in K-Town, LA. Um, Again, the essence, so I didn't want an exact replica of what it looks like. I just wanted to remember what the title looks like and that open sign because a lot of the book is drawn the way I was seeing the world at that time through my eyes in my mind. So a lot of details aren't there while I was living it. So I tried not to create it in like retrospect and instead try to capture the moment as it was happening. So but yeah, this spot never it doesn't exist anymore. Didn't make it past the pandemic, but it used to stay open till 4 in the morning. Yeah, so and then that's me at SF Zine Fest in 2016. Um, yeah, and so again, like that's not what the county fair building looked like, but I just wanted the essence. I didn't need the exact picture. Like I wasn't trying to prove like here's what the building looks like. I just wanted it to fit with the style of the whole book. Um, yeah. And so that's how I kind of use research and like develop the book. Um, and this is like an extreme example of something that if you didn't know what this was, you would just think it was a random animation building, but I didn't want to put um the the mural on it because I didn't want it to be recognizable. I don't know. I don't want people to know what it was and then bring their own like interpretations to the scene based off them knowing what the animation house was. So it's a place called Six Point Harness in LA, and I had a paid internship after college, and yeah, that's what that those scenes are from. When you read the book, edits. So originally I had a lot of um, silhouettes, which I still kept in, but my editor asked me to keep it as detailed as I started off the book as, like towards the middle. I get bored easily when I'm drawing my comics, and so I always end up either I change it or like the book originally was like 300 pages. We edited it down to 200. When I first turned it in, it was like 90 pages, which is ridiculous. But like I was just like having those moments where like I don't want to draw this anymore, or my life's boring. We don't need to talk about this right now. So there's a lot of silhouettes which I still kept and I wanted to keep because they represented like how those moments were isolated and how they felt. So when I edited them to have more detail, I didn't want full-blown backgrounds there again because how I experienced it at that time was everything was kind of faded to the back, like we're just there, but it wasn't there, if that makes sense. So when you see a lot of the backgrounds in these moments, it's faded to the background on purpose so that it kind of represents of how I was viewing the world at that time. Um, yeah, same thing. Um, except that bottom panel, it did need to be worked on. So I'm thankful for having like second passes at stuff because you could see like just with a little bit more time, it gets better, or it can get better. Yeah, I think it got better. Um, this was a page that wasn't asked to be edited, but I decided to add a little extra into it. So this is the opening to the book, and my character, I put the minor threat shirt on that I would have been wearing during that time, and then my background's kind of dim and grayed out because I'm sad, and then Irene's is bright and popped, and then I put something on the for the ad for the bus stop is the movie Straight Outta Compton because that came out when I came home and yeah. So another one page wasn't asked to be edited, but I figured, see, the thing about editing is when you make a good edit to a page, you have to go back or you should maybe take another look. So I ended up going back and be like, well, if I'm gonna edit that, I have to like I gotta add more stuff to this one too to make it match the new edit. So that's a lot of what happened towards the end, and I think it looks better. Yeah, I think the edits were a good addition to the book. Another scene that wasn't asked to be edited, but yeah, I figured I should spot certain areas where the preacher's talking. And yeah, I think this is the most successful edit. Uh, that's a ridiculous page to turn in as finished. And so after I got done editing, I was like, oh man, thank God I got to edit this page. And I'm very happy with it. Just it's not a lot that was added to, in my opinion, but it kind of grounds the page. Like I don't know, it some of the edits that I made, like I said, they weren't necessary. They could have worked on their own, but this page absolutely could not have worked without this edit, in my opinion. So I'm happy that I got to edit it. Cover design. I always want to draw the type font, but I never get to draw the type font for the page. But originally, when I was trying to call it, always searching, I started doing these kind of like types that was like, oh, they're gonna see one, and John Cordy's gonna be like, that's the one, and then I'm gonna have this talk where I was like, yeah, I did it all by hand. That's not what happened, but I still made them anyways. And so I sent in a bunch of covers, and then my editor Tracy was like, "Hey, do you have any more painterly type stuff to fit like for the book cover? Because uh, inside is already kind of like a little bit flat, which is my style, and it's like for the outside we want to change the cover up a little bit." And so I started sketching these, and then I sent over this, which my daughter helped me paint. And I was like, how about this? And they're like, yeah, that's cool, but do you have anything else? And I was like, well, here's some of my more illustrative stuff. Do any of these styles work? And they chose this image, but I didn't know. They chose the image and then they sent that back to me that's on the right. And I was like, oh no, I didn't want to use that character. It was just a random one. And I was like, well, if you like this one, can I redraw it? And so I ended up redrawing it. Yeah. And that's how we got to the cover. And so I recreated that character, but just put my face on it because I thought that made more sense. And then that's what I turned in. And then I was like, well, we need a back cover. And I was like, I'll draw something similar to the front cover. And then they sent me back these and asked me to pick one of the type fonts. I really want to draw a type font. I still want to, but I understand. And I think I chose the one on the left. And then eventually it came to this. And the cool thing that happened, I didn't even notice until the book was printed, is that original cover I sent them ended up going on the back cover and they made it work with the book. So that was pretty cool to see in real life. The book is out now. If you don't have a copy, you should get one because it's dope. I made it, have fun drawing it. But it's up to you. I ain't, I am. If you know me, you know me. I'm not about to force nobody to buy it, but you should buy it though. Um, all right. And Breena, I'll let you share your screen.
Oh, let me mute myself. That was so insightful, and thank you for sharing your process, Lawrence. I feel like you answered a lot of questions I wanted to ask you, but I might just ask you again anyway. Oh, you're getting a lots of applause from Carmen. Yeah. Shout out to all of the people who are familiar, lots of familiar names in this room. And thank you all for taking the time out of your busy days to be here. And I'll also be screen sharing a little bit, just so I can focus on some parts of the book that I think are interesting. And I feel like we had like a really cool conversation. Okay. Oop, let me stop my video real quick before my daughter comes on screen. Um, yeah, I'll be off camera just in case she comes here just to protect her privacy. Yeah, let me get the screen sharing. And like I said, I wanted to share some pages, some passages I thought were really interesting, and get into like a little conversation about the nitty gritty. Here we go. Sorry, our child was using me as a napkin for a minute. She's eating popcorn. She doesn't like to watch movies with messy hands. Okay. And thanks, Lawrence, for making this dope slideshow for me. um, let's get into this page. As always, I think it's always really wonderful just to be in relationship with you and to talk about spirituality and just our separate experiences with the church. We both come from very different like denominations. Lawrence is Baptist growing up, and I would say evangelical, even though the church I grew up in like referred to itself as non-denominational, but um I thought this was really interesting way that you used typography or just like um just the text to kind of act less like its own essence, its own character. And if you could just kind of like reshare what we were talking about the other day, how you wanted to use these lyrics in the song from the beginning of the book. What was the intention for the way you wanted to like kind of turn some of the parts of it upside down as some of the lyrics kind of got closer to like the back of your head, and why you decided to use like the what are those called? Like the not the measures, but like the bars from like the score and like the music notes to kind of wrap themselves around your legs at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, it's like a twofold type thing where it was like I still listen to gospel music when I'm sad, 'cause that's what I grew up on. So um it was but yeah, I have my differences in my opinions. But so a thing that always happens is in church, if you were sad, or in my case, like actually depressed, not just, oh, I'm sad right now, but it was Jesus will fix it. It wasn't like, oh, hey, how you doing? Or you need to talk about this. It was, oh, Jesus will fix it. And so it's like this song I grew up listening to, hearing Jesus will fix it. And so it's warm, but it's also cold because I'm like, I know what you're trying to say, but at this moment, that's not what I need. Also, Jesus ain't no genie if this is what you actually believe in. So it's not like, oh, I'm sad now. Well, Jesus will fix it, and poof. It's like that ain't how it work. And for me, what I believe. So it was just like this song is kind of consuming me, and I'm having like a moment where, like when I was a kid, it might have like hearing the song might have made me happy, but as an adult, I'm like I like this song, but it's not working. Um,
Mhm.
and so I don't know if Jesus is about to fix this one. Like that's how I was feeling. It's like, yeah. And then yeah, it's all consuming. It's kind of what I was trying to get at. And then some of it's just aesthetic and composition as well. So I try to have a balance of both. Like where it says fix it. The reason I was comfortable with it be going behind my head is because my head is circular and you could still read it as like a dot for the eye. And it's like stuff like that that don't nobody really care about, but I care about. So yeah, but that's what was happening.
Yeah, it's still very resonant because I feel like, well, I was sharing it with you the other day. I sometimes feel like there's a loss of innocence, or just like what you're referring to, like as a kid, um, the lyrics would have hit a certain way, but when you experience life, right? I think you portray that so beautifully, like before this page and especially afterwards, when you kind of have the Homer Simpson like moment to moment where the you hear all of the whispers in the background after like pastor was like welcoming you back into the church, because I felt like I had a similar experience with like sort of being passively called out by pastor for like um, being away but like coming home. And I just want to compliment you for kind of embodying all of these like multitudes and the complexities in your relationship to, this part of your identity, because it's not easy to do that. And I know you already shared your story about this spread, but I was wondering if you can expand a little bit about I guess just like also the artistic choices you made for this composition, because I thought it was interesting that you kind of made a gallery of like all the different dishes. And yeah, just curious about your choices that you made for this spread.
Yeah, it's kind of like what should be a happy scene is not. So that's why the whole entire black background is black instead of, you know. Um, and I thought it would be f fun, or not thought it would be. It was fun to draw the food in this way instead of kind of putting it on the table. Like a lot of what the book plays with how I see the world in my mind. And
Hmm.
so a lot of panels are a reflection of the world through my mind, but in comic form. So it's not imaginary, it's happening, but I thought comics has an interesting way of how we can use like language in comics, and so I thought it would be cool to do it this way. Um, because you don't see the food on the table, but we know the food's on the table because that's what happens at the table. But it's a comic, so to me, it's like you can do that and it still be like, oh yeah, we know the food's there. We don't need to see it. But yeah, that's kind of the thought process behind it.
Mhm. Yeah. And like you were just sharing just a few moments ago, there's some things you're able to really do well in comics that you might not be able to like replicate in other mediums. I mean, maybe animation is like the closest thing we could kind of bring a lot of character into like the text. And I was curious about just like even the outlines of like the speech balloons. Like I have an idea like what they represent, but I just am curious about what the vibrating outlines on like the left side of the page represent, and even the way some of like the text is just so like big, like it occupies a lot of real estate in comparison to like the text on the other side of, or like on the right side of the page.
Yeah, uh, well, I mean, yeah, if you know me, you know me, you know what it's about. But I think I'm not supposed to tell the book Indian or whatever. But so basically, it represents something's off with the way I'm speaking. It's very like excited and out there, and um, yeah, like comics can do that. Whereas like just looking at the two in comparison to the other, you're like, oh, the other one's like I don't want to say normal, but normal, and then like why are you talking like that? Like what is going on? And I hope that's something that people are reading and paying attention to, like, oh, something's happening right here.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and just the idea of beautiful day is like I hope that's how it sounds in your in your head. And yeah, it kind of yeah, it represents my mental state at the time and how what I'm saying is kind of shaky and might not be grounded in reality, but yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Like even though I know by experience that your voice wouldn't go a few octaves higher, but like if I didn't know, if I wasn't married to you and
I
living
got
with you,
range.
but I feel like it would have been like Tom Kenny, um, like SpongeBob, sort of like high pitched, excitable, like um timber, if you will. If that's what if I didn't, again, if I wasn't like in a relationship with you, I feel like it would have been that kind of like volume or just like that type of pitch. And this is what makes me excited about the medium because you're able to get away with like giving us like these visual clues, and it's up to the reader to kind of like imagine what the sound of each person's voice would be like in their head. Um, And I really love this because I personally was kind of excited about the possibility of this like monster creature you created to be a potential cover. But I'm glad though that there's like the painterly part that we are able to see for the cover. But also curious, where did this idea for this like monster that you created, that I believe it's made out of like the chain link fence on the blacktop?
Yeah. It's cartoons, like
Mhm.
is yeah, I always love that in animation when they do it. Shout out to my editor too for encouraging me to push the monster even larger than it was. Yeah, she was like, or they were like, "Hey, I love when stuff like this is in comics, so really have fun with it and push it." And so, yeah. But yeah, it's the chain link fence. Originally I had like the buildings cracking behind it and all that type of thing, which is cool, but that's not what I do. And so trying to keep true to like what I do, this was like a happy compromise in between. But yeah, that came straight from like animation, like even I think it's called Monsters House or something like that. You know, where the house turns into a
Mm,
monster. Yeah, like
mhm.
just things like that you
Yeah.
see in animations, like, influenced me a lot. That's where it comes from.
Hmm. And is it supposed to represent like this just kind of like your ego being defeated because you're like with this little kid who is um
He's
not like he's
rude.
trying to like crush your like spirit, but like, little kids are just I feel like you really captured how blunt they could be.
Yeah, as that was a real kid. He's honest but rude. But yeah. Yeah, he would tell me, he was like, "Oh, they good, but my cousin's better." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." But yeah, no, just that myth of like, I went to college, so they tell you, and not they, like people treat you like, how you go to college, but you work here, like type of
Hmm.
thing. And I
Hmm.
bought into that for a long, long time. Like, oh yeah, something wrong with me. Like now y'all know a job, you work where you work, but at that time, I was like, yeah, how did I go to college? How did I spend 4 years doing this and then I'm working here and this little kid is disrespecting me, talking about his cousin draw better than I do. Um, yeah, that's that's why I try to put like it's faint, but it says failure in the shadow that's being casted on
Ah,
me.
I do
Yeah,
see it. Yeah.
just yeah.
Ah, that's just such brilliant like choices in cartooning that you're able to like experiment and play with. Um, and yeah, I know again, we had conversations about this, but if you could go into a bit more detail about other choices you made, like creating the speech balloons, or sorry, not speech balloons, the thought bubbles around these conversations between your ex-coworkers or your coworkers at the time when they're just trying to like understand what happened, like what happened to like the ex-partner, how did you get into like this place?
Yeah, this was another like another edit. So originally it was just the floating heads because like I said, a lot of it takes place and how I see it in my mind. Like it's all really happening, but I wanted the point of view to be like from my how it looks in my head. And so I was like, all right, well, if I want to keep the same level of detail, I started the book with what could I add in that would be like it won't be like that's not really what I envisioned it being, but was still within my vision, but made me think a little harder of how I could bring it up to the standard of the like because that first page was incredibly like first 10 pages, if you looked at them and then you looked at what I started to turn in, like my vision was still there, but it was like it wasn't complete, which again, shout out to my editor who was like, just stick with it. You got it, stick with it. And so I was like, well, how could this look if I did the thought bubbles? So you're seeing what's happening in real time, but it's through the perspective of my mind. And when we use thought bubbles, it's like what's happening in your head. So I thought it'd be cool to play with that because comics allows you to play with that. And them talking over me is literally talking over me, and then me talking under them, and just little things. Like when one person speaks, you see the kind of scribbles, if you will, but it's like the monster's kind of eating me, like eating at me. The static's eating at me. So in the first panel, he's talking and then everybody else is quiet, so there's no static. And then the next one, he's talking and everybody's quiet, no static. When I'm talking, there's no static, but it goes over both of like it's kind of like how conversations happen. That's why I don't like talking to people. Where it's like we talk over each other, we talk under each other, and it's just like, bro, I'd rather just be quiet. So I try to capture that in the like comic form. And I
Mm-hmm.
kind of got it. This is what I imagine it would look like for what I do. I could be wrong, but I think I got it the way I wanted it.
I think so too, because I feel like you're using these conversations and literally like the speech balloons as like a really personified way of showing us that and yeah, a lot of these moments where you're trying to explain your story, especially on this page, you just keep getting interrupted, and this is kind of like how it feels like because the attention is being drawn away from you, and it's kind of been more focusing on the coworkers at the time. And I remember you saying you emphasize who's getting the most attention or who we should be drawing our eye towards based off of where you wanted to like have that the shading or like the cross hatching in the background. And so I hear a kid wanting more strawberries, so maybe I can just also just give you some questions that I wrote down while I go fetch her some strawberries. Um, let's see. I guess in comparison to some of your other work, like not just the books, but just like other comics that you've made and self-published, how did this book feel different or special in comparison to some of your other pieces of work?
Um, I don't know. I, hmm. I think I leaned into the cartooning aspect more. Uh, like I said, sometimes I get bored of my own work, so I don't know. I feel like this time I was like, well, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it not right, but like I'm gonna put everything I have into it and try to like give the reader as much as possible that can be done with comics. When I make comics, not for everybody else. Y'all make it how you want to make it. But the way I make comics, how can I give as much as I can? Um, where like I hope people will look at it and be like, oh yeah, he was thinking about what he put on the page, which I always am, but sometimes I'm kind of like it's a battle with like, nah, I'm gonna do what I want to do. If you don't get it, you don't get it. Uh, but this time I tried to like, I don't know, like just be more gracious to the reader and like the art form, I guess. I don't know. That might not make sense. Brina's making strawberries, so I'm gonna just keep talking. Um, but yeah, it feels like I don't think it's different. I think it's like I don't know if you other cartoonists are like when you make something you're like, oh damn, I could do that. Like I know I have the capability to do that, but I put it on the page like that this time. Yeah, I think I could be happy with this. And that's kind of how I feel about this book. Like I don't care about the story, not like that, but I lived it, so I don't need like it's not interesting to me in that way, the story. The interesting part was taking a story that I live that I don't find that interesting is just part of my life and make it interesting in comics language and like playing with the form and the medium that way. Um, so that's what I tried to do with this book was like, all right, well, if I'm bored of it, how do I make it not boring for myself? Because it's not fresh to me. Like I live this, so how do I make it fresh for me where I'm like, oh wow, like I didn't know it could look like that, or I didn't know this story had that potential to be like that. So yeah.
Oh, sorry, y'all. I was trying to find the unmute button, but um, there's also um, it's funny because I feel like when I see you, there's like a lot of joy when you create this work, but you also talk a lot about just some of the really the heavy stuff that you experienced in life. And I was curious, how was it like for you to draw painful moments or retelling painful moments in comic form? Like, yeah, because I also know we sometimes feel like we have to be really visually explicit, whether that be in the written form or like an illustration. But yeah, just curious, like, how do you feel about drawing like really traumatic moments in, yeah, in lived experiences? And if you have any advice for people who kind of grapple with those moments in retelling their stories.
Yeah, I don't I think I'm alright with it. Like this is a decade ago, literally, like 10 years. So I've had enough time to kind of sit with it. I think it's more of the aftermath of like you write something down. I always remember an interview with Tina Turner, and she was talking about her memoir and how the point of it was so that she could release all that stuff. But then when she released it, all anyone ever wanted to talk about was the damn memoir and like all the terrible things that happened to her. And so I try to keep in mind that like, yeah, this is dramatic stuff, but I ain't gotta like once I make it, I make it. We're not about to sit and have a conversation about what it's like to be shot at or none of that, unless it's in this format. But other than that, the book is the book and that's that. Um, but I try not to I don't know. I think because I had so much time that it just it kind of felt good because there were times where like if I was thinking about this or writing about it, it might not have been so easy to write, but the fact that I can is kind of it's a good thing. It's a good thing that I could write about this and not feel some type of way, I guess. And I would also say like as someone who does other autobio stuff that's in real time, just limit if you're not comfortable talking about it, you don't need to share it or put it into a story unless you want to put it into the story. Like I made this book because I talk about it anyway. So it's like, well, I'm comfortable talking about it already, so it's okay to put into this format. But if I wasn't comfortable about it, I don't know that I would advise myself to do it or advise someone else to do it because people like to attach themselves to your story,
Mhm.
which can be cool, but also it can be like, like this happened to me. Like you don't really get to have an opinion about what happened to me if you weren't in that environment while it was happening. So that's the drawback of doing books like this, where everyone like you're a character in a book, but it's not you're not a character in a book. This is real life, so it's kind of weird. But I'm good with it.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Um, that part where, if you are deciding to make a memoir about, certain parts of like your history, like your personal history that you feel like you still kind of need to process, like it still feels raw or like unresolved, like you shouldn't feel forced to like tell it if you're not ready. Because I really feel like it does something to you spiritually when you try to do something that you're not even prepared to reckon with, or to process through. Um, yeah, because these things take a lot of time and a lot of, I mean, art making, writing, it's such an emotionally driven thing that we do. And yeah, just want to thank you for voicing those things and just checking in on time, and want to give the rest of the audience opportunity to um, share any questions with us either in the chat or I guess maybe through a mic if people feel brave enough to unmute. We can transition into Q&A right now since we have just a little bit of time left together. And if not, I could also ask a question. Let me see. I guess what led you into wanting to create or graphic memoirs, as opposed to telling your personal story through like music, through painting, animation? Because yeah, you're not just like a cartoonist, you're like so many other things. But yeah, why choose comics to create or just to retell your story?
I think it's just what I do. Like I used to try to have like a really good, profound answer. Like comics is like no, like when I sit at the table and I start drawing is what I do. Like it translates the easiest from my brain to the page and it makes sense. Like it just makes sense. And so that's why I do it. Uh, yeah, that's like the truth is like it just makes sense. Like and so I just keep doing it because it makes sense. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's
And for me, not for y'all. Y'all might look at me like, bro, what is that? But for me, it makes sense. Like, yeah.
yeah, sometimes it doesn't need like a deeper like thing. Like it's just natural. It's like I don't want to say like another muscle or just like an extension of your body, but sometimes I feel that way. Like it's sometimes the best way for me personally to communicate a lot of complex stuff that's just stirring up in my cauldron in my brain. And I'm gonna look at the chat real quick, and I believe we have we got something from Cassie Lee. Agree, Julie. It's beautiful to see partners discussing work while also parenting. Thank you for witnessing us. You really see each other and all the decisions that go into the page. And got to feed your baby strawberries. She actually didn't want strawberries. She just tried to like take a bag of popcorn and put more popcorn in for her movie. Um, Thanks for a glimpse into the artist's life. I'm curious how you manage emotional regulation throughout such a long process of making a book. You mentioned you get bored. How do you persevere, Lawrence?
Uh, I was gonna say something rude, but I'm not. I'm gonna be quiet a little less. Um, I don't know. I think because it just feels natural. It's like this is what I want to do. This is what I love to do.
Mhm.
So I do it. Um, when I get bored, um, for something like this, because I'm working with a publisher, like when we do our own stuff, I could get bored and just be like, "Oh, I want to do something else. That's fine, or change it up." But I think having an editor where I was like, yo, I'm having a crisis. I don't want to do 200 pages. I think my life is boring. Can it be 95? And then just kind of, not like, hey, you better do this, but more of being like, just you got to stick with this. This is working, it's gonna be good. And I think that helps. Because 200 pages to 95 is it's wild. Like it's not even it's like what? But I don't know, just being able to be like, oh, I had that moment and then nobody was tripping. They might have been behind the scenes. Like I would have been tripping, like 95 pages, you serious? But to have the moment to be like, yo, I don't want to do this. Can it be this? And then being like, no, like I think can we add this page back in? Can we add this page back in? And just um being able to have that moment and then get back to what I was doing before helps. Yeah. Also loving it and tuning out the world. Like I'm not a
Mhm.
people person to begin with. Those that know me, I mind my business and don't really like to be out there like that. So um I just kind of go away and do the work. And then I'm fortunate because yeah, I have a partner who's also a cartoonist, and we have a new kid who loves everything I do, even if it's bad. She's like, "Ooh, wow!" And it's like, I don't know about you, but hearing "ooh, wow" every time you draw a line is like, "Oh yeah, I could keep doing this forever." Like, So like I don't know how it is for other people, but I have like a certain set of circumstances that allows me to kind of have moments of joy.
Hmm. And I can attest that felt like you really enjoyed just making comics in general. It makes me happy to see you kind of laugh at your work too when you're like, this is funny. Or like showing me like something that you haven't tried before and it's really exciting to you. So it's like what you were saying, just remind yourself how much you love doing this type of work or just being a cartoonist or comic maker.